What you think of when you hear the term great lady, that's Clare.
She has all of the ingredients of being substantive, stylish, elegant, graceful.
My mother's an artist with her life. If you think about the charities that she's been involved with, they're based on raising the human spirit.
What do you say about a lifetime of giving? She gives to the arts and the parks, the museums, the disenfranchised.
Clare is a person who realizes what needs to be done and does it.
Without Clare, the ballet, I just don't know if it would have happened.
She and several other ladies realized that there needed to be a friends group for the Warner Parks, which was the first friends group for a park in Nashville.
She came on the board in 1986. She remains today on the board of the Tennessee State Museum Foundation.
She saw what Cheekwood was and what it should be, and I think her sense of style and grace has somehow been interpreted at Cheekwood.
Whether it was Cheekwood or the Frist, or whether it was the Parthenon or Percy Warner Park, Clare is a force to be reckoned with.
She just has a way of touching so many people and bettering our community.
Nothing is fun unless Claire's going to be there, so we're always sort of like, is Clare coming? Do you think we can get Clare?
She has a razor wit and fun. She is hilariously funny.
She has charisma, and backing that charisma is a certitude. She knows exactly who she is and what she wants.
Everything she touches is more beautiful because she's been there.
We love her.
We do. We love you, Clare.
We love you, Clare.
When you say, think outside of the box, Janet Ayers has no box. And that's the way that we get to walk into work every day.
She brings energy to everything she does. She is an energetic person.
When students walk into our office for the first time, they feel like college is not something they can obtain.
Many of the students that they give scholarships to have no history of college in their families.
She wants to help every one of them.
We remove the barriers. We say, let's take money out of the situation, let's take transportation out of the situation, and all the things that feel too big to overcome, and you worry about what you want your career to be.
When I realized Janet and Jim guarantee every young person who graduates from high school there in their hometown an opportunity at college through their scholarship, that just blew me away. That's a huge commitment that they made. Now they're doing so much more.
When the bank moved to its current location, Janet had the idea to put together a collection of Tennessee art. We're a Tennessee bank, and we pride ourselves on being involved in communities across the state.
Great fun, great energy. She's bold, she's incisive. She is an artist in her own right.
And I think it's a combination of having fun, of good art, and reminding us what we're supposed to be doing ultimately, and that's thinking about other people.
When you grow up in a small town, as Janet did, that value system, I think is a key part of who Janet is, and I think it's a key part of how you see her interact with people today. It's not just a one and done, it's forming relationships at all levels.
I actually texted Janet from our recent new student orientation with a picture of a young man who was sitting right behind me who I turned around and said, hey, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Parsons. And I said, oh yeah? Do you know Janet and Jim Ayers? And he said, I'm here because of Janet Ayers.
Her legacy will be taking a foundation that was a good idea, well-meaning, and she made it work.
My mother and Inez Crutchfield have been friends, best friends, since 1949.
We were on Patterson, they were on 22nd. I mean, literally around the corner.
We were just one family, really, in two separate households.
My dad was a football coach, and my mother was the mother to those student athletes.
Mrs. Gentry, of course, was a dancer and taught dance at TSU.
We always had a student living in our home, but that student would actually become part of the family.
They went to school, they came home, they helped Mama around the house.
We all had dinner, Mom cooked for everybody.
Parents would send their children here with a hope and a prayer and a little money. And it was the people like Mrs. Crutchfield and Mrs. Gentry as well that would extend a hand and either get them someplace, well, you can stay with me until we can get you someplace.
Carrie and Inez were surrogate mothers to a group of young people who were rebelling against a system that was unfair and unjust and disrespectful.
I remember the segregated buses, and even in the Capitol, I remember colored and white water fountains and bathrooms.
My mother was a fireball her entire life. She did not accept, she didn't like it, nor did she accept discrimination.
Carrie Gentry, Inez Crutchfield were members of First Baptist Capitol Hill. Their church was very much involved in organizing the civil rights movement in Nashville.
You know, with segregation as it was, our church and the activities of our church were the center of many things that we did.
We were able to sit in there and watch the students be trained by civil rights icons. Lawson and students like John Lewis and others would be in the room.
When the kids would have the sit-ins and wind up in jail, and the parents would come fleeing into town, scared to death, Mama would meet them, explain everything that was going on, and kind of walk them through it.
My parents participated in a manner that people don't talk about a lot, and those were the transporters, the people who picked the students up from TSU, Fisk, Meharry, American Baptist College, and took them to First Baptist, picked them up from First Baptist and took them back to school, sometimes to the hospital, sometimes picking them up from jail.
A lot of these people's names are not written in the history books, but they were behind the scenes doing things and helping people, and sometimes out there in the street protesting.
They were able to not just break barriers, but establish precedent for a lot of what we see now.
My mom has had a lot of personal experiences that made her feel like politics and being politically active would be the way to effect change.
She and my mother integrated the Democratic Women's Club in the early to mid 60s.
For some period of time, she was one of the real voices in the Democratic Party. At one point in time, she could pick up the phone and get Vice President Gore or get Tipper Gore on the phone.
When you walked in the door with Carrie Gentry and Inez Crutchfield, the rooms opened up.
I'm so grateful that I had parents who taught me and taught my brother that we are to love people.
And she's proud to support causes that maybe are not everybody else's greatest cause.
And I have to say, I cannot think of a person who would be a better mother than she
is.
Once upon a time in 1928, in the faraway land of Boston, a baby girl was born as the only daughter to Dorothy and Samuel Schaefer. Her name, Zara Annette Schaefer. After a stint with ballet, and apparently Madame Butterfly, Zara decided to follow in the large footprints of two older brothers who had chosen paths to civic service. Brother Stanley gave his life at the Battle of the Bulge. Brother Joe served for decades as a doctor. Having dropped the name Zara somewhere along the way, Annette decided she wanted to be a social worker. So she up and applied to Boston University and accomplished her goal. It probably wasn't the first goal she accomplished, but it most certainly was not her last. After her marriage to Erwin Eskind on a cold Christmas Eve, she moved to West Point, had 2 children, Stephen and Jeffrey, and then found herself in Nashville, Tennessee. Her Bostonian friends offered their condolences about the move. They wrung their hands over her misfortune. But Annette decided to make the most of her new environs, and her mantra became the old saying, "Behold the turtle, he makes progress only when he sticks his neck out." Annette has stuck her neck out many times, much to our benefit. One example was her hugely successful role in founding Nashville's Jewish Family Service and her uncanny ability to find adoptive parents and create scores of happy families. As another example, Annette became a member of the first Metro Nashville School Board, where she began a successful march to create kindergarten programs in the public schools. Despite the ultimate victory, Annette was not yet content. She wanted to do more. Charles Frazier, the revered and beloved head of Metro Schools, remembers the day in about 1991 when Annette walked into his office and asked, "What would you do with $1 million?" Gentleman that he is, he knew she was not joking. Thereafter, Annette welcomed everyone to a new era, contributions to public education. Heretofore, taxes had been its only income stream, and the Nashville Public Education Foundation remains the result. Along the way, Annette chose another inspirational quote coined by Eleanor Roosevelt: "A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she's in hot water." Today, we honor Annette as an inspiration to us all, and a reminder that we all need to stick our necks out. Progress still needs to be made. We look forward to finding out what her next accomplishment will be. Thanks for everything, Annette.
I've known Miss Rosetta for decades. Anybody in Nashville knows what a community leader she is and how important she is to this city.
In her young 80s, she is still doing so very much to help people in the community.
She knows the city, she knows different parts of the community, and she knows the people.
Everyone wants to listen to her stories about the path that she's traveled, the things that she contributed during the civil rights era, the time she spent with Reverend King.
That's why I think that fire in her to fight against injustice is so important, because she knows what happens when you don't.
You know, she had a military career, she's had a brilliant business career. I think the thing that most people don't know about Miss Rosetta is how many people she helps.
One of the things that she's always been concerned about is keeping the black press alive.
Unfortunately, so-called mainstream newspapers won't cover all segments of the community. So you need newspapers such as the one that Rosetta founded, the Tennessee Tribune, and she's the publisher of, to go and get those stories that are often left out.
It's always about the people who live, work, or are part of the community she thinks that she can represent best.
She does it because it's the right thing to do and because it's important to her.
She just does it. And you may label it whatever you want to, but she sees what she believes is right and righteous, and she fights for that.
She walks the talk. She just plain walks the talk, always has, always will, and that's one of the things that I love about her.
Main thing I loved about Colleen was that she was one of the most generous,
kind, thoughtful people I have ever known.
Colleen really represented all that is great about human beings and their willingness to rise up to help others.
She was very active in the community. She didn't really limit her efforts here to the School of Nursing.
When she arrived at Vanderbilt in the 80s, I really saw in her and continue to see a nurse and a professional who had a vision for what Vanderbilt Nursing and the Vanderbilt University School of Nursing could be.
She's the one who was a visionary 10 years down the road. My job was to take that vision and make it happen.
Well, I'm not a medical professional, but I have utilized the medical community a lot. And I discovered that Colleen's handprint is literally all over the medical delivery system that we have today.
We're never going to have enough physicians, but we can have a good supply of advanced practice nurses. And of anything that she did, she elevated the role of the advanced practice nurse in healthcare delivery.
She truly believed in both education and had an extraordinary love of animals. One of my favorite memories of Colleen, years ago when we didn't have the ability to do an MRI on a pet, she convinced the chief of radiology at Vanderbilt Hospital to allow us to sneak in at midnight with her 80-pound German Shepherd dog, Heidi.
Colleen was a force. And I don't know if I need to say anything more than that, but she definitely was a force to contend with.
She transformed Vanderbilt School of Nursing into one of the best in the country.
And occasionally now I'll just sort of look up and go, okay, you're gonna need to send me a message here. I've got a situation I need to handle, you know. So I channel my inner Colleen.
She knew how to get things done. She really did.